Well, hello. My name is Jodi Scholes. I am your instructor for the MBLEx review course. So glad that you are here today. Look at our full house. Let me make sure you can see our full house. Yes, our full house. Yay! These are all your compadres, man. These people who are here are in the same situation that you are. That they are here. Everyone here today is here to sharpen the saw. You know, there's an old story that's in a book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the habits is sharpen your saw. And it talks about guys who work with lumberjacks. And, the one guy just works hard, man. He just works hard. He just every day shows up and he's laughing at his colleague because in the morning, the colleague would take the 5 minutes in the morning to sharpen his saw and to treat the saw with a little bit of wax. And all day long, look, the original guy would think, oh, I'm going to be so far ahead of you in production because you're taking this 5, 10 minutes to sharpen your saw. Come on now. Well, because his colleague had better tools, his colleague produced more lumber at the end of the day with less effort. This is what you're doing right now. You are sharpening your saw. You could muscle through the MBLEx. You could muscle through the pile of books, the pile of notebooks, the endless websites, to figure out, how am I going to study for the MBLEx? What do I need to study for the MBLEx? No, man. You're setting aside time right now to get laser focused on what you need to know to pass the MBLEx. So the class today is going to be in 3 parts. I'm going to give you a test-taking strategy. We're going to do some learning on the upper body anatomy. And then third part of class is we dissect some questions. And in the past, graduates have asked me, golly, Jode, why don't you just teach? Why don't you just do an hour of teaching? Well, to be honest with you, your brain can't absorb it all. Yeah. And your brain can't continually absorb new information when it's just learn, 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 right? And so I want to give you some strategies and help you practice dissecting questions because, yes, you need to know information, but you also need to know test-taking strategies. You got it, because this test can be overwhelming. And here's what I want to share with you today. And that is that the MBLEx is a CAT test. C-A-T, like meow, right? CAT test. What the C-A-T stands for is Computer Adaptive Test. This is the style of test. Now, maybe in the past, maybe in high school or, for a job training or in college or, in wherever you did any education, you may have taken like the SATs, you may have taken, classroom tests that were subject matter specific. So, a friend of mine is pursuing his HVAC license, and he takes tests that are all about HVAC. So, that's AC units and heating and ventilation and all that. The MBLEx is 100 questions. You have an hour and 50 minutes to complete it. And it is a computer adaptive test. And what that means is that when you answer questions correctly, the test will adapt and give you a harder question. That seems crazy, right? That seems like that's not fair. What the hell? The goal of the MBLEx is to score 660 points. Every question is worth a different amount of points. The easy ones are worth less. The harder ones are worth more. And so when you answer an easy question correctly, the test says, oh, let's take it up a notch. Now, that easy question was worth a certain number of points. We'll call it 5 points. The next level of question is going to be worth 10 points, and then 15 points, and then 20 points. You get what I'm saying? So actually, as you answer harder questions, you have the opportunity to score more points. So the same thing happens in reverse. It's an adaptive test. Once you answer a tougher question incorrectly, then the computer will actually adapt and give you your next question a little easier. It is actually working on your behalf to get you to the 660 points. So when you see a really tough question, just know that that's worth a lot of points. There is no one on the planet. Well, I shouldn't say no one. Never, always. We can't say that, right? There are very, 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 very few people who would score 100% on this test. It's not designed for success in that way. It is designed to test your ability to critically think, your knowledge of the 8 categories on the content outline, and to confirm that you're proficient and not a hazard to public safety. Yeah, honestly. So, having said that, I want to just reiterate that the MBLEx is a computer adaptive test. The questions do get harder, but you're earning more points. So, just understand that you're not imagining it, that that's actually a good thing. And when you get easy questions, that might be your first question in that category. Go ahead and rock it. And whether the question is easy in your mind's eye or hard in your mind's eye, please remember to breathe. In fact, recently I was talking with a graduate. All right, and this is our topic for today. Welcome to Anatomy of the Upper Body. This will be a walk through much of what you learned in massage school. All massage schools are different. Some teach this stuff, some don't. This is meant to be a review, not a super in-depth learning experience. If you want that super in-depth learning experience, jump on and grab a class in the online learning center. If you're not sure about that, hit me up with a message and I'll explain further. Today, I want to say thank you to Dr. Sunil. He prepared some of these slides and made them available to the public. Likewise, thank you to Shah Alam out of Malaysia. He or she prepared some of these slides as well. And I just wanted to say thank you. SlideShare is where I found some of these slides. So we are going to look at the upper body. We are going to talk about the neck today. We haven't talked about the neck very much. We're going to talk about the limbs, and we're going to talk about just one movement of those limbs today. So the neck could be its own lecture just because there's so many muscles, and it can be overwhelming. But we are going to go with the major muscles of the neck. Let's start with the SCM, the sternocleidomastoid. I always say clavicular, but it's cleidomastoid. Cleidomastoid, the sternocleidomastoid. We call it the SCM. So S, C, and M. And this is where it appears in the neck. Let's take a look at its origins and insertions. Not that you need to memorize these, but you do need to know the regions of the body where these muscles attach. Not just for the MBLEx, but for your treatments. So take a peek here. The origin is down here on the sternum. So look at sterno, sternum, sterno, sternum. So it's here. The sternum has 3 parts. It's actually on the manubrium, um, right there on the upper border of that sternum. And then a little bit of the clavicle. Cleidoid actually is clavicle. And then all the way up, it inserts right here at this mastoid process and the nuchal line. So if you see something in your questions that says nuchal line, I'm like, nuchal line? What is that? When I remember learning this, and I was like, is that part of the reproductive system? No, nope, it sure isn't. The nuchal line is right here where this SCM inserts, and it's on the cranium. This is the superior nuchal line. Now, again, you don't need to memorize origins and insertions. I want you to be familiar with the vocabulary. I want it to trigger something in your mind. If you see it, it attaches right here at the manubrium, the sternum, and the clavicle, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Sternocleidomastoid, mastoid process. Maybe that's what we're talking about. And this muscle is the one that turns the head and can make the face look up. So opposite side. So when you turn your head and you get this little, that's your SCM right there. Up and attaches the mastoid process and then that nuchal line, that the tendon goes out into the nuchal line. So remember that tendons attach muscle to bone. So this white stuff is the tendon. Yep. And so when you turn your head, see that thing right there? That is your SCM. One more look at it. It's a major muscle. It's one you'll want to know. Good. Moving along. Let's take a look at another muscle of the upper body, posterior, and this is the trapezius. So you see the trapezius right here. This is half of it. Its name comes because it looks like a trapezoid. And I wanted you to just see where this trap actually lies. So it comes all the way down here. And yes, so occipital protuberance, this is another way to say bony landmark, 7th cervical spine. So the 7th cervical spine is the bottom one, and it has a bony protuberance. Or when we're talking about the occipital protuberance, but one thing that if you just take your hand and run it down the back of your neck, there's a bigger bone at the bottom. There's a bigger bone that feels like it might start the thoracic, but it's actually C7. That's the largest of the cervical vertebrae. It's the bottom one. It's about to transition into the thoracic vertebrae. So here's where the trap inserts. Comes all the way down the thoracic vertebrae. The entire thoracic spine. Look at that. Last rib. We're going to take a look at ribs in a minute. But 11th and 12th ribs are called floaters. All the ribs, all 12 ribs, attach to the thoracic spine. They may not attach to the sternum. Not all the ribs attach to the sternum, but all the ribs attach to the thoracic spine, even the floaters, 11 and 12 here. So this is T11, T12, and you see that trapezius there. And its major role is to extend the neck. So extending the neck, what does that look like? Extending the neck. So if this is flexing the neck, what is extending the neck? Yes, extending the neck. So from the side, flexion of the neck, extension of the neck. And the lat's primary role is to extend the neck. Has a few other things in there. Upper fibers help to elevate the shoulder, middle fibers retract, but don't be distracted by those secondary movements. Just know the primary ones. Now, upper fibers also help to laterally flex, but we have other muscles that we talk about for that. Platysma muscle. So we don't often talk about this muscle, but I wanted you to see it. Every now and then it'll come up on the MBLEx. Not often, to be honest, but it's just a muscle you maybe haven't even seen since school. So I just wanted to remind you where it was. Um, and take a look. So its origin is up in here, right? All of these, look at this, labia, remember lips, depressor labia. Um, and then so all through here, it's all down through here, your platysma muscle. And then it fans out at the bottom and becomes part of the thorax, part of the pec major. The thorax is just our thoracic, that whole thoracic cavity. So if we were to take the rib cage, that's the thorax. And if you see that word. So it becomes part of, it inserts into the pec major. It inserts here into the deltoid a little bit, but that's what it looks like. Again, I'm not big on origins and insertions as far as like every little muscle where it is. Don't waste your brain space on that. Just know the region. Know what the muscle looks like. And of course, this action, the platysma muscle, it depresses the mandible. So it contracts and it pulls down the mandible. Here's a nice big picture of it. And we end up working it when we do anterior neck work. Oh, this is a good one. So splenius capitis is also part of our major neck muscles. I'm only talking about the biggies today. So take a look at this splenius capitis. If you have put your hands on the occipital ridge, if you've put your fingers on someone's occipital ridge, you have felt the splenius capitis. May not have even known it, but here we are. So it attaches right here along the occipital. Like some questions. Let's pause for a moment. Time to dissect some questions. Ready to change gears? How about take a sip of water? Yeah. Let me check the chat. All right. I'll read more of the chat. I want to make sure there weren't any specific questions. Lots of good comments. I'll share those later. You ready to dissect some questions? The group of muscles that best describes the movement of abduction at the shoulder joint are, all right, we're going to practice dissecting some questions here. What is the question asking? It's asking for a group of muscles, and it's asking about abduction. We just went through this. So adduction, abduction at the shoulder joint. So this is happening. We have flexion and extension of the shoulder joint, which happens in this frontal plane. Abduction and adduction happen in the transverse plane or in the lateral plane, in the horizontal plane, if you will. All right, let's take a look at the answers. Oh, we already got some answers popping in the chat. The group of muscles that best describes the movement of abduction at the shoulder joint. Deltoid, all heads, pec minor, teres minor as a helper. Supraspinatus starts, deltoid, biceps as a helper. Supra, infra, teres minor, subscap. D, pectoralis major, latissimus dorsi, teres major. Ooh, got all sorts of answers. Let's see. Oh, we're across the board. So at home right now, go from anatomical position. Go ahead and abduct your arms. Move them. Abduct your, I'm not going to show you because I showed you earlier. Abduct your arms. Well, let's eliminate one wrong answer, shall we? We know it's not letter C. If you were watching, letter C is all of the rotator cuffs. And those are not the ones responsible for abduction. We've got a split decision. So abduction, I'll show you in just a moment. Ready? Best answer? Letter B. What? Why isn't it D? Because D is adduction. Letter B is abduction. Abduction is up. Supraspinatus starts the movement, deltoids are involved, and at the tippity top, the bicep helps. In adduction, that's when you get the pec. That's when you get the latissimus. That's teres major as a helper. I know. You can review this a little later. Let's go to the next question. How many carpal bones and what is the most often fractured? 10, and the fifth metatarsal is often fractured. 9, and the trapezium, the trapeze, is the most often fractured. 8, and the scaphoid is the most often fractured. 7, and the hamate is the most often fractured. All right, I see answers rolling in. We're going to go ahead and eliminate one wrong answer. And we can eliminate A, because the fifth metatarsal is in the foot. And the fifth metatarsal is the one that's most often fractured in the foot. Yes. Oh, all sorts of answers. Ready? Let's see. Looking good. Looking good. Take a peek. The best answer? Letter C. Letter C, 8. Remember the infinity sign? Right? That's the infinity sign, 8. And the scaphoid is the most often fractured. The trapezium is the one that makes up the saddle joint. So the scaphoid is a little lower, and that's most often fractured. But the trapezium right next to it is the trapeze that makes the saddle joint. Yes. All right. We shall continue.
Jodi.
Yes.
There's another way that people can really actually know about the radial pulse.
The radial pulse. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the best way to really actually understand.
Right? Radial pulse?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So when you take the pulse, right?
Right.
When we take a pulse, it's right here. The radial pulse. So thumb side. Thank you. Yes. Thanks, Hensley.
No problem.
Next question. What muscle is pictured here? Trapezius, rhomboids, latissimus dorsi, levator scap. What muscle is pictured here? This is a picture of someone stretching a muscle. What muscle is being stretched? This is the highlighted muscle. There's a number of other muscles that are being stretched in this movement, but the highlighted muscle. Yay! Oh my gosh, I'm going to say it. Everyone say it. Ensley, Ayite, Marina. Lauren, yes. Francie, yes. Arberis, yes. New, yes. Lana, yes. Let's get rid of one wrong answer. We know it's not the lats, right? Because the lats are down below. Boom. You guys got it. Levator scap. Yes. Yes, yes. And the job of the levator scap? Elevate. Elevate the scaps, right? Levator. It's an elevator. Elevator for the scaps. Good. That's a wrap. Woo-hoo. That's a wrap. All right. Ooh, we did some work today. Yeah, we did. We did some work today. Nice job. Way to go. Awesome. Awesome. So, my name is Jodi Scholes. I am your instructor for the MBLEx review course. Happy to be with you today. Thanks for taking this little ride with me on the upper body anatomy. Hope you found it helpful and look forward to seeing you again next week. I'll be staying around in this chat in the Zoom room for a few minutes to answer questions, get feedback. But for now, signing off on the recording.